everyone. A very good morning to you all. My name is Harleen, and I'm your host for today's session. I hope you're all having a pleasant morning and are excited and ready for the brand new informative session of the Masterclass series organized by the Institute of Product Leadership. Before I start today's insightful session, let me give you a quick introduction to the Institute. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, design, strategy, and leadership. The Institute has partnered with 3 universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. The Institute was actually founded in 2012 with the singular mission of creating 10,000 plus product leaders in the country. Ever since, the organization has designed and delivered programs in collaboration with various institutes, universities, and corporates to the senior working professionals to help them make career transitions into product leadership. The Institute has built and developed a community of over 3,700 plus successful alumni leading the product, data, and design teams across the world. We are also knowledge partners for 250 plus organizations worldwide. You can find out more about the Institute and the programs offered on our website. You can also check the chat window for the URL. And for those of you guys who have joined us via LinkedIn, please check the comment section for the URL. Today's session is on rapid product prototyping for accelerated go-to-market strategy. Once a speaker for today presents his insights, we'll open up for questions. Please keep your questions ready. You can post your questions on Zoom in the chat section. This session is also being live streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So viewers on any of these channels, please feel free to post your questions in the comment section and we will share it with the speaker. You guys should take this opportunity and engage with our esteemed speaker with some good and intriguing questions. That leads me to our today's speaker. I'm delighted to welcome and introduce Mr. Subodh Kar. Mr. Subodh is a seasoned product leader renowned for architecting and scaling global energy management solutions. At present, he drives growth for a flagship digital product revolutionizing motor management at Schneider Electric. Before this, he spearheaded the development and expansion of automation products within the paper and pulp industry at Honeywell. With a solid decade at Honeywell, he also excelled in conceiving, launching, and managing enterprise-grade business intelligence products. He has also been twice honored with the Exemplary Coach Award from the Institute of Product Leadership, and he's deeply dedicated to both learning and teaching. A very warm welcome to you, Subodh. We're thrilled to have you here with us today. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're well.
Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you, Harleen. Thank you for having me.
Without any further delay, the screen is all yours.
Thank you, Harleen, and welcome everybody. Good to have you here on a Saturday morning. Goes to show that this is an important session for all of you who are already probably product leaders or who are on the path of becoming product leaders. And my name is Subodh. Harleen, thank you for all the kind words that you put in there. A little more about myself. I live in Bangalore, and what I do I've been associated with IPL for about 5+ years now, and I'm an alumni of IPL as well. I did my MBA in product management from IPL, and there after my MBA, what I figured was whatever I learned in my MBA, the only way I could retain what I learned was either I put everything that I learned into practice, or I go and share my experiences or share and learn more from other participants. So I decided to do both. I put to practice whatever I can from my MBA course in my day-to-day work life. But you can't put everything to action, right? I mean, you're not in a role where you can pretty much work on every single thing that you can think of. And therefore, engaging with participants in masterclasses, engaging with students from IPL and various other institutions gives me that opportunity to keep my learning going as well. So as much as you're going to be learning from whatever I share today, I hope that you will have questions that will help me learn more from you, from each one of you. Yeah, so that's what I look forward to. So so today's session is an important topic about rapid prototyping. Needless to say, today is a world where any organization doesn't want to spend money upfront into a product or into a feature or a service without having a clear understanding that if this is the right problem to solve and if we are solving it right or not. Right, and what we figured was the only way that we could make sure that we are solving the right problem and for the right customer segment is by conducting experiments. So when we started looking at that space, my experience was that the experimentation as such and running experiments and gathering inputs from there is a very is very unstructured. And what I'm trying to do here is an attempt to put some kind of structure from it based on my learnings, my experiences, and what I've read from various books from product leaders across the world. Right. So what you're going to see today is a kind of a summary of all of that, and something that you can take back and put to work, put into action right away as well. So our session today will not be just one-sided. We will be working together. I have an exercise where all of us will be participating together. We have close to about 23 participants, I think, 23 participants. Perfect number for a 2-hour session where we will work on putting some preliminary basic kind of prototypes together. I wouldn't call it prototypes, but experiments together. And hopefully some of you will get a chance to share your screen and share as well as to what your learnings have been and what you've been able to create as part of the session today. Okay, so with that, I go ahead and share my screen and take it forward from that. Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get started. All right. So before we get there, I want to set the context here based on some research and some reports that goes to tell why a lot of startups fail. In a city like Bangalore itself, what I understand is that in a year there are at least about 200 to 300 startups that crop up, and only 80% of them actually make it through the first year. And the 80% that make it through the first year, only 80% of them make it through the second year, and only a handful of them actually make it big. Survive, make it beyond what we call the golden period, which is about 5 years, right? And when an analysis was performed, one of the top reasons that came out, apart from running out of cash or not having enough financial backup, was that there was no market need for the product, right? And organizations realized it quite late. Startups realized it quite late in the game that there was no market need, there was no real problem to solve, and they were solving it for the wrong customer segment, right? So there are two aspects to working on a problem. First of all, you have to make sure that you're working on the right problem, and the second one, you need to make sure that you're working on the right solution to that problem. And both these contribute towards having a good market need, or that product market fit, as we call it. So statistics says almost 9 out of 10 startups fail primarily because of this reason, that they don't run enough experiments, they don't evaluate enough before they can launch a product out in the market for the public. Apart from that, you have other reasons too, with some of the top reasons like running out of cash, not having enough the right kind of people with the right skill set on board, and then getting outcompeted as well. It's a big wide world. No idea is considered to be new these days. It's all about who implements it the best, who offers the best user experience, and how do they go about solving the problem is what kind of contributes towards the success of that product. So there's another statistics, and I'm sure some of you will have seen some of these, some of the latest apps as well, failing within almost 3 days of its installation. Apparently, 90% of apps they are abandoned after the first single use, and close to 77% the direct active users, they drop within 3 days of its installation, and it is quite true. So I come back to that statement of, are you solving the right problem and are you solving the right solution? The most recent example is of Threads. You must have, I'm not sure if you're following Threads, but Microsoft Meta launched Threads in competition with Twitter, and they started, I think I think sometime on July 5th is when they started. July 5th or July 4th is when they started. They launched the product, and they had about 100 million users, daily active users, who signed up for the product. And what happened was, in about 2 days, it dropped down to 44. And on July 21st, it dropped out to 13 daily active users. And from what I checked about a week ago, I think they're down to 500,000 users or so, almost 500,000 users, daily active users who are on that app. Now, for a company like Meta, you would assume that they would have done their market study quite well. They would have invested into their customer segments, and they would have identified the real need before launching a product like Threads. But it doesn't seem like that. Or for all you know, this might be an experiment for them to see what do customers really look for, and how they can create something that can outcompete something like Twitter. So this recent example of Threads is the proof that rapid experimentation and being able to run experiments in a time-bound, structured manner is going to be a key cornerstone for any product out there to be able to keep its customers, daily active users, over a short period of time. And so what we're going to do today is we will learn putting some of the simple experiments together. So before that, I would like to share a video. This is a video of a person called Eric Ries, who's a very
leaving aside
who's the author of this book called The Lean Startup. One of the authors that I follow, and he talks about this importance of he talks about how people end up building products that nobody wants. So let's hear what he has to say. And
leaving aside the question of why is that such a bad idea, I want you to empathize with me personally for a second, if you would. It's all about me. I'm speaking, right? So I was the one who wrote the software to do IAM interoperability across all those networks. And I had to be drawn kind of kicking and screaming to believe that actually all that code, even though it was well factored and I had the unit tests, it was well documented, it was actually all waste. So if I spent the last 6 months of my life just doing nothing, building no software at all, I would have contributed just as much value to our corporate bottom line as if I had killed myself writing this software. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Here I'd done everything right again. I'd used the extreme programming, agile, everything, and yet I created this totally wasted software. Why? Because the biggest source of waste in a startup is building something that nobody wants. And that's not a technical problem, which is kind of frustrating. Right? My theory was I could delegate the business issues to somebody else. I just focus on building good technology, and I would be successful. And unfortunately, startups don't fail because the technology doesn't work. They fail because nobody wants what they're trying to build. And that's what I talked about at the very beginning, that a lot of startups are failing for a bad reason. It's not because they're taking a lot of risk. It's because they're building something that basically they could have found out ahead of time nobody wanted. And that's why we have to break down some of these myths. If you want to operate this way, you got to get rid of the traditional departmental silos that we build companies with. So my suggestion is, instead of we have business and marketing, sales, forget that. We have one cross-functional problem team trying to answer the question, who's the customer, what problem are we trying to solve, while we concurrently have what we used to call engineering, ops, and QA, a solution team that's trying to answer the question, is the current hypothesis for our product any good? And these two teams operate independently but in close synchronization. That's what allows us to discover that the current pivot we're on is no good and pick a new one.
Right. So I couldn't have said it better. That despite writing great code, sometimes we end up building products which nobody needs. And what he's talking about is having a team that one team that's constantly figuring out if you're building it right, and then there's another team that is actually, one team that constantly is focused on building the right product, and there's the other team that's focused on building the product right. And when these teams come together and constantly run experiments with each other, the outcome of those experiments, iteration after iteration, is something that is much closer to what a customer really needs. Or the output of that is you gain to learn much earlier in the game about something that the customer doesn't really need. Both are good. Both are good. It's a wrong notion to think that everything that we work upon has to be a $1 billion idea or has to be a feature that a customer will actually need. As engineers and as solution providers, as problem solvers, we are very attached to our solutions. We treat them like our own baby, and we just want to make sure that even if there's no problem, we want to make sure that there's a solution, that the solution is well accepted. When you run experiments, you have to have the mindset to be able to detach yourself from the solution and be able to let go if it's not something that works out for your customers. So these are two mindsets that you constantly will be in. One is the problem space, and the other one is the solution space. And while it is super important and I would say easy to a very large extent to be in the solution space, we are mostly in that space where we can create ideas, the creativity kicks in, and we can find opportunities and technology to solve a certain problem. Product leaders and product managers, they somehow focus very less on the problem space. What I have experienced is that the more I'm able to spend my time in the problem space, my solution is much more simpler and much more closer to what my customer needs. So the focus is, as much as possible, try to detach yourself from the solution space and get into the problem space, get into the details of the problem, get to know the problem like nobody else. And that will be a key differentiator for as a product leader, because as far as solutions are concerned, there are enough people who can make solutions, implement solutions, or execute solutions. But when it comes down to identifying the right problem and getting to the root of the problem, it's not easy. and then there are not too many people who can do that the right way as well. So today is an attempt where I share a process that you can follow to get into this problem space a little more, in a much more structured way, in a much more better way. No, this is what I'm sharing on the screen right now is a typical, ideation to ship cycle, where you have an idea design, you develop it, maybe it's a first iteration, you take about 3 to 6 months, and then you ship it, and what you end up is with a solution that's looking for a problem, whereas it should have been the other way around. The recommended ideation to ship is where you follow the build, measure, and learn, which is also it's also known as design thinking approach to product development, where you have an idea design and you go through a process of identifying all your assumptions, identifying and coming up with a hypothesis, running experiments, and then you build and ship iteratively. Right? So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through this process of how to identify assumptions, how to shortlist assumptions, how to go about putting a hypothesis together, and then we'll go through some of the most commonly used experiments as well in organizations. And after that, you will see how you can actually use your results from the experiments to go and build and ship in an iterative manner. Now, this ideation to ship process that I'm sharing here is irrespective of what industry you come from, irrespective of what technology you use, irrespective of whether it's a product or a service. This set of basic, simple set of steps can be used anywhere. These steps that I'm sharing here can be used in an iterative fashion for building a new product from scratch, or it can be used for when you're inserting or putting in a new feature, or contemplating putting a new feature into an existing product as well. This process can be applied anywhere. Okay. So before I get into the details, I want to pause and see if anybody has any specific questions with whatever I've shared so far. And then I get into the details, because after this, it's going to be a hands-on activity that we will be doing together. Any questions? People, you can unmute and ask. Harleen, I hope people can unmute.
They can raise their hands or use the chat box, the Q&A box.
Okay. I think I saw one hand go up. I'm not sure though if there's any specific questions. All right. If there's none, then I think we'll move forward. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do for today's session is I've listed a couple of problems here, given it in a fancy name as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link to a set of slides that we will need for, I'm going to share with each one of you so that we can work together on it. Okay, so I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it here in the chat. Okay. I'd like everyone to access this link. It's a read-only set of slides that we will use to work together. And what I need you to do is this is a set of read-only slides. What I'd like you to do is click on File and make a copy of the entire presentation so that you can create your own local copy. Okay, if you see my screen, you will see it here. So click on File and make a copy of the entire presentation. Okay. So once you've done that, if you go to slide number 2, you will see that list that I was just sharing. List of, let's say, problems that I have put in that we'd like to work to, that we'd like to solve. Okay.
Subodh, there have been some questions that are coming in the Q&A section. If you can.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at it now. I see two questions. One from Santosh. How many product management roles demanded in the market? How many? Every other company has a product management role today. They might not call it a product manager, but they will call it. They might call it a product owner, or they might call it a product marketing manager. Pretty much any company that you pick for, which is into product management or which is into manufacturing or making products, and any other company which is probably even service-based companies today have product management roles. So many. When my answer is many. Paul Chaudhary has a question. Even before you start ideating, how to validate if there's a market/user need for this idea? So so the approach is you don't start ideating, okay, because you don't know. There is no way to figure out that there is a market need or user for it. What you need to start off with is with the problem. You always start with the problem, not with the idea. So first you figure out what the problem is, exists. If this problem is worth solving, is this problem aware? How many people is it affecting? Is it a large scale problem? Is it a very small problem? You need to start there, and then the ideating piece will start. And once you start ideating, there is no way to figure out if this idea will work, will it fly or not. But the only way out is by running experiments, is by reaching out to customers and giving them bits and pieces of your product and running experiments to find out if it will really work with them or not. Okay. Kama Chunde. Kindly review my concept. Okay, I can do that later on. I will take a look at it. Bhaskar MG, I teach a couple of courses on entrepreneurship and design thinking, finding it difficult to bring students from solution space to problem space. Your suggestions? Yes, it's very difficult to bring people from solution space to problem space. One of the ways that I have found to help bring students from from solution space to problem space is to challenge them to explain their problem to you first, to be able to describe the problem in such a manner that even a five-year-old can understand. Just that one exercise helps them detach themselves from the solution and bring them to the problem space momentarily. And you as a coach, what you could do is challenge them and bring them back again and again, asking them to not think about the solution and bring them back to the problem, try to bring them back to the problem space. You could also use tools like the value proposition canvas, which where the customer profile map inside the value proposition canvas is primarily focused on helping students understand the problem space in a lot of depth. We could use that tool as well. Does a UI UX guy has possibilities to start a career as a product manager? Absolutely. It's a good place to start UI UX because today UI UX user experience is what is the key differentiating factor for one of the biggest differentiating factors for success of a product. And if you are well versed in UI UX, you have a pretty good chance of getting into product management. Okay, you want me to share the link again? There you go. This is the link. Shikha Gupta. Click on that and come to this slide. I see only 7 people on this link. I'm assuming that you have made your own copies already. If you haven't, please make a copy by clicking on File, make a copy and enter presentation. File, make a copy and enter presentation so that you can have your own personal copy. All right, and now what we'll do is pick any one of these, whichever you connect with, pick to shop, mall nav, transporter, dress up, or simplify subs, whichever, and we work through one of them. We see if we can create an experiment for one of them. Okay, Paul, you have a question? No? Okay. Okay, so I go back to the presentation. What we're going to do now is, so the first step in rapid prototyping is being able to design or put your idea design or in a very simple way, right? We love to start with our ideas, right? So that's absolutely fine. This is assuming that you have understood the problem that you're trying to solve and you have an idea in mind, right? But you don't know if this idea is going to work or not. That's what we're trying to do here. So the first step is to put your idea design on paper in a very simple way, in a sentence of one, maximum 10 to 15 words, 2 to 3 sentences. Yes, Dana, you have a question? You can, I think you can unmute and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. Okay. Put your question in the chat. All right. Paul, you can put it in the chat. I'll bring it up as we go through this. So let's go through the. Okay, so the first,
guys, we can't unmute everyone. So you guys can drop your questions in the Q&A box. So then there's one. Okay, awesome.
I've seen product management be often described as a discipline with its own industry agnostic approach. What do you develop the knowledge for that? Okay, I will address that question at the very end. Srishir? No problem, Jana. Okay, put your questions in the chat so that we can continue to make progress. All right, so the first step is to put your idea design together. Put it in very simple words. Whatever you have picked, small nav or any of those that you have picked from that from this particular slide. Pick any one of them and put your idea in 1 or 2, 3 sentences. At the end of the session, hopefully 1 or 2 of you will be able to present what idea you've picked and as well. Hopefully we can do that. Let's see. Okay, so here's an example of Google Pay. A simple description of what Google Pay is. A digital wallet platform and online payment system to power in-app, online and in-person contactless purchases on mobile devices, enabling users to make payments. Okay, so this is a one-line description of the idea. The next step is to identify assumptions. What you see here are the 4 pillars of any product. Okay. All these 4 pillars, let's say a product has to do really well on all of this for it to be a successful one. For it to, when I say successful, for it to be have the maximum product market fit. So the next step is to identify a list of assumptions. So there are some trigger questions that you can use under each of these pillars here to identify what assumptions are you making with regards to your product. So the first one is, if you take desirability, you have to be very clear who your target customers are, what problem do they want to solve, how big is this problem, right? Are they really frustrated? How do they solve it today? If there are existing solutions to this problem, how are they solving it today? Are they even looking for a solution, right? And if the current solution that exists is not solving the problem, why not? These are some questions that you need to be able to answer yourself. And this could be based on some secondary research that you will perform, or maybe talking to a few customers. These will end up as your primary assumptions. Okay, the answers will end up to be your primary assumptions. Next is the viability, which is all about the financial aspects of your product. You need to figure out how big the target market is. Will this solution even generate revenue? Will you be able to make money out of it? Because as you know, Your product might be desirable, it might be feasible, and it might be greatly adaptable also. But if at the end of the day, if your product or solution is not going to generate revenue, if it's not going to make profits, then you don't have a problem. You don't have a business model, and you don't have a product. Right? You need to be having a clear, not a very clear idea, but at least a high level idea of how you're going to acquire customers, and how will you make sure that they can actively use your solution. A high level idea needs to be there when you're putting your idea design together. Third question is the feasibility. So when it comes down to feasibility, you need to know that you have the right technology to solve the problem, and the technology will solve the problem. And you need to be aware of any kind of legal compliance or regulatory challenges or regulatory rules that might be there, which is specific to that geography, specific to that culture, which will have an impact on the feasibility of your product. Right? So you need to be aware of that too. And you might make some assumptions as well around it. Then you're talking about adaptability. Now, there are market forces, there are macroeconomic forces, microeconomic forces that impact your product or solution. You need to be aware of what these trends are, and you will probably make some assumptions around it as well. Right? The idea is to make a list of as many assumptions as you can. Things that you are aware of, things that you are not aware of completely, things that you want to learn more about. All kinds of assumptions needs to be listed out. Okay. So I think it's clear so far, straightforward. You shouldn't have any troubles here. Okay. So if you have any questions around assumptions, let me see if there's around identifying assumptions. How about sustainability assumptions, or are you covering under adaptability bucket? Yes, under adaptability is what it is. Sustainability will come under adaptability. You make whatever assumptions you have to make around it. You're right. Can we consider redesign of a website and as an idea or a solution to the problem? Yes. As long as it is solving something, it can be considered as a problem, as an idea or a solution to the problem. So you'll have to identify your assumptions, Lindsay, to understand what is the current existing website not solving for your customers. So you probably, if you have an idea about it, that's good. If you don't have, you have to make an assumption about what do you think is not solving for your customers. Make sure that you list those assumptions. How do we make assessment by foreseeing of impact of macroeconomic forces? So for adaptability and macroeconomic forces, you need to be well informed about that particular industry or domain that you're solving the problem for. So if it's fintech, then you need to make sure that you might need to consult somebody who's in that space of fintech, who can help you with the trends that are currently in the market in that space of fintech software or fintech products, so that you can identify what kind of impact, macroeconomic impact it might have on the idea or the solution that you're putting together. Okay, good. I think I answered those questions around listing your assumptions. Once you've done that, so here's a list of maybe a sample set of assumptions that for a product like Google Pay, right? So urban consumers find it painful to wait at an ATM for cash. It is painful to carry exact change for cash transactions. Urban consumers are comfortable transacting via smartphones. These are some of the assumptions that could have been made when a product like GPay was being envisioned. Yeah. Now, of these assumptions, you should be able to identify your critical assumptions. Now, not all assumptions are important to be assessed, but the most important ones are the ones which are critical from what you think it is, and which have no evidence at all. Meaning, when I say no evidence, there is no, let's say, research There is no other, maybe nobody else has implemented something like what you're thinking, and no information whatsoever, or very less information regarding that particular assumption that you're trying to make. So this becomes the first set of assumptions that you have to test, that you have to experiment with. Okay, without these assumptions being validated, your idea doesn't exist. Those are the assumptions that you pick, the ones which are critical, important, and the ones which have no evidence whatsoever. So in the case of the next kind of assumptions are the ones which are critical and have some kind of evidence. So in the case of, let's say, Google Pay, by the time Google Pay hit the market, Paytm had their presence felt, and some of the assumptions that Google Pay had about customers using an online app to make financial transactions, it was a critical assumption, but they had some kind of an evidence that people were comfortable using an app to make online transactions. But it was a critical assumption still. They had to validate it further to make sure that they can have enough number of customers onboarded for a product like Google Pay. So it became a critical assumption for them, and they had some kind of evidence, but they had to test it further too. Then you have assumptions which are not critical, and they have no evidence as well. That's okay, you can test them later. And the ones which are not critical and they don't have any evidence at all, and they have some kind of evidence, they're not critical, but they have evidence, you can let them go. You don't have to waste time on that. Yeah. So the next step for whatever idea that you have picked is to identify critical assumptions, the ones which have no evidence and the ones which have evidence. Okay. So I will give you some time to work on each of those ideas and to make your assumptions as well. We will go through that. First, I'll take you through the process of how to arrive at an experiment. Okay, clear so far as assumptions are concerned? Any questions around assumptions? Okay, once you've done that, then you put together something called as a we believe hypothesis. Okay, again, this is a simple statement, a one-line statement, which basically goes like, we believe that somebody which is the market or the customer segment, they will do something with your product in certain context. There has to be a circumstance, there has to be a context, because they have a motive behind it. Okay, so this particular hypothesis could be a combination of multiple critical assumptions too. So you could arrive at one hypothesis which has multiple assumptions as well clubbed into it. That's absolutely fine. So we believe 15% of urban consumers will want to use our app to make payments because they don't want to carry cash. We believe hypothesis for a product like Google Pay. Okay. Now, how did you arrive at 15%? There is no logic behind it. Yeah, it is an experiment that you want to run, right? So you might arrive at a number based on the industry that you're from, if it is retail or if it's fintech, or if it's an e-commerce based business that you're thinking about, or if it's a manufacturing physical product that you're thinking about. You might have some industry standards, but there's no fixed number per se. But what you have to make sure is that you have a number in your hypothesis so that you can measure it later. Okay, so let's say you're being conservative and you want to say that, okay, I believe 15% of the number of people that I approach will want to use my product to make some kind of a payment, and because they don't want to carry cash. Yeah, so that's your we believe hypothesis. Then you get into the experiment stage. Okay, now there are different kinds of experiments that you will conduct at different stages of your product, right? When you are in the space of identifying a problem and zeroing in on the problem and the customer segment, you will be working on problem and customer experiments. The first block here, the first column here talks about problem and customer experiments, which are experiments that you can run to figure out if there is a problem at all, and if there are people or if there are customers who resonate with that problem. So that comes into your first column here, problem and customer experiments. So here what you're saying, some of the questions that you're trying to answer is the problem big enough for that particular customer segment? And am I solving the right problem here? Am I solving the right pain here? So some of the experiments that you can run is listed here. You can conduct, problem interviews. You can do storyboarding and illustrations. Surveys can be run. You can do email marketing. A very popular experiment that is run for problem and customer experiments to arrive at answers for these kind of questions is something called as a landing page. If time permits today, we will look at a simple landing page as well, and how to put together a simple landing page, and hopefully we can put one together as well. We will see how, if we have enough time, then we will do that too, right? So, and I have I will show you what a landing page looks like as well. We will go through that as well. Right? So this is where so for your first column is all about problem and customer. The second column is what we are focused today is creating solution experiments, right? Would it be the right solution for the problem and the customer segment? So this is where you get into this, into putting prototypes together. If it's a physical problem, if it's a physical product, then you might want to go for putting cardboard-based prototypes, putting wood-based prototypes, or 3D printed prototypes. You could do that too. If it is a digital product, then you might want to go with the product demo videos. You might want to put a landing page, which has solution and feature information as well. The simple definition of a landing page is a single page which talks about the value proposition that you're trying to offer, the problem that you're trying to solve, and some key features which gives an idea to the customer the approach you're planning to take to solve the problem. That's a landing page. You might have seen landing pages where you say single page with maybe a text box to fill in your email address and maybe a name or a phone number. And the moment you share that information, it takes you to another page which says, thank you for your information. We're still under construction and we'll come back to you as soon as we have more information. That's an example of a landing page, right? That is also an experiment to figure out if a customer connects or resonates with the problem that you're trying to solve or resonates with the solution that you're trying to offer here. Right? So there are various metrics that you can measure when you're on a landing page, and we'll see that in a moment. Right? So these are some of the solution experiments that you can do. Today, no-code tools are very popular. No-code tools like Glide, then Webflow. These are some tools that you can use to create no-code mobile apps. Apps which are fully functional, with authentication and pretty much can do a lot of things. You can put a complete e-commerce website using a no-code, a paid version of a no-code tool today, like Glide for that matter. Very innovative tools, very simple tools to use. You don't need to write a line of code, a single line of code, and it will pretty much implement your entire idea and the complete flow with the right level of authentication and so on and so forth. Amazing tools available out there. Yeah, so these are some of your solution experiments. And the last one is viability experiments. Viability experiments are run when you are very sure that you have had a problem and solution fit. Okay, on paper, you have a problem and solution fit, right? Viability experiments will get you, will help you understand if you can have a product market fit, right? Meaning, is your product viable will it generate revenue or not? Okay, one of the most popular examples for a viability experiment is the Wizard of Oz kind of an experiment. Now, the Wizard of Oz experiment, there's a very popular experiment that was conducted by Zappos. Zappos is an e-commerce website in the US, which sells shoes of different brands. And the founder of the company, they were able to figure out the problem solution fit on paper. But before going and investing a whole lot of money in putting an entire supply chain system in place, which by the way costs a lot of money, very expensive, they wanted to be sure that their solution will generate revenue or not. So what they did was they created a fully functional website which can take orders from customers for shoes, but in the back end, these orders would arrive, or these orders would land up as in an email to somebody, and somebody would process that email, that order manually, meaning they would go to the store, pick up the shoe, pack it up nicely, and then ship it to the customers. So they did this Wizard of Oz experiment for a good amount of time. And once they were sure that it had created enough momentum, that is when they went and invested in a full-fledged supply chain, full-fledged inventory management system, and a customer order system, because they knew that now is the time where customers are willing to buy, and enough momentum has been created. Okay? So those are some of the examples of experiments for viability. There is a beautiful book called Testing Business Ideas. The title of the book is Testing Business Ideas. The author is Alex Osterwalder, 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 Alex Osterwalder. You will find it on Amazon. An amazing book which has close to 100 plus experiments that can be that is used for either for a problem and solution fit, or to find a product market fit. Different kinds of experiments detailed out down to each experiment. The book will tell you what level of evidence this experiment can bring to the table, what's the duration that you should be running these experiments for, and some common ideas around how this experiment can be implemented. Right. A must-have book for product leaders. You should purchase it, and you should definitely refer it when you are in a fix as to what kind of experiment I should be running. Again, these experiments are for some of the experiments they have also mentioned whether it can be applied for digital products or for physical products. So you will get all that information in that book. Okay. Right. So then here is a snapshot of a few landing pages. This one here is a landing page on the left-hand top corner is a landing page of a website called Tiny Habits, a very popular portal wherein put together by this professor in Stanford University, which helps people bring in new habits. Very popular, and this is what their landing page looks like. Then on the right-hand side, you have another landing page of a product called Buffer, which basically helps customers schedule their tweets. Very commonly used by news agencies and news companies and people who constantly need to post on Twitter. You can schedule your posts in here, and it helps you to buffer it and do a lot of other stuff. So you see, they put this landing page together, and I believe in a week's time, their landing page website actually crashed because of the traffic that it attracted, and they knew immediately that this was something that was a need of the hour and was used, and they went ahead and did it. This black screen at the bottom is the basically the that's not Uber. This is something to do with e-waste. Another portal from of a company that had to that wanted to put a product or a service together for e-waste, to handle e-waste. Yeah. So then the question is, okay, I've identified by experiment. What do I measure? Right. So it depends from it varies from experiment to experiment. Here is a landing page on the left-hand side of Sales Navigator, which is one of the offers by LinkedIn in order to find more leads for sales, people who are into sales, and this is what their landing page looks like. They have a simple video which talks about what the product can do for them. A simple in 2 sentences, they talk about the value proposition that the product offers, and then what it can actually do. They have listed out some of the common problems that salespeople face when it comes to prospecting, cold calling, and building relationships with their customers. And what they said is that this product can help you do all of this. Yeah. So the measuring, what you're going to measure might vary from one experiment to the other, right? And for an example, for a product or for a experiment like a landing page, you might want to measure how many people visited the web page, how many people stayed on that web page for, let's say more than 30 seconds. Right? How many people left their email address or their phone number? Right? What did they actually? If it's a landing page that spans multiple pages, then on which page did they spend more time, and so on and so forth. So like this, there are tools available today which can help you measure different such metrics, which can get you a better understanding of how well people have connected with either the solution landing page or the problem landing page. All right, and that might be able to give you some kind of an indication. Either you will figure out that maybe that people have not resonated with your problem, or you figure out that they connect with your problem and they're willing to be part of your experiments. They're willing to share some information from their end to enrich your product, right? So these measures need to be defined well in advance, and you will need to make the right choice of tools to ensure that these measurements can be captured appropriately. Okay, so I'll take a pause here and see if you have any questions. Okay. Rishi, I'll answer your question at the end. Sustainability assumptions, we spoke about it. Raju John from LinkedIn has asked, how do you marry viability through a solution that is decided based on aspects like skill? What are the parameters that decide the pricing of a product? How do you marry viability through a solution that is decided based on aspects like skill, technology, and funds? Experiments. You have to run experiments with a good set of customers and see if they're willing to spend money, if they're willing to buy products. That's the only way to figure out. Pricing also the same way. You have to. There is no formula to arrive at the pricing of a product. You have to run experiments. You have to benchmark the pricing of your product against competitors. and you have to be able to arrive at the perceived value of the product that you're offering and then price it accordingly. It requires experiments. There is no straightforward formula that you can apply to do it. Assessment, Ganesh Pandey, I think when it's not critical and have evidence, should be kept for later than where we don't have evidence rather than discarding them. Ganesh, you critical in having evidence doesn't mean that your product can solve that problem. Doesn't mean that having evidence means that maybe you can run lesser number of experiments, but it's still a critical assumption, and it has to be validated. Your approach to that critical assumption might be different from the approach that some other product has made it. Right? And when I say evidence could mean market research reports available somewhere as well. You need to validate it though. Okay. What should be the sample size to do these experiments, and how to decide the pricing of the product and marry it to viability, Monica Mandal? Sample size of experiments, I will share in a bit. You will see the sample size of your experiments. As far as pricing is concerned, it's a completely different topic. There are various ways in which you can arrive at pricing. You could do cost plus pricing, where you have identified the cost of your product, and then you have a fixed, let's say, a fixed percentage on top of it, which is you consider as your gross margin. And that could be the pricing. You benchmark that against other products, other competitors out there. Or you have to do something what we call as, you have to identify the perceived value of your product, right? And then put that percentage on top of your product. Now, unless you run experiments, you really won't know if people will be willing to spend that money or not. Prakash Kumar, the name of the author is, I'll put it in here, it's Alex Osterwalder in the chat. I'll put it in the chat. Okay. Raju John from LinkedIn, can we identify early adopters in the initial phase of a new product development? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You have to. At the very initial phase, you have to identify your early adopters, especially if it's a B2C kind of product, which is a consumer-based product. Then you have to identify early adopters so that you can work with a handful of customers and not have to work with many customers. Which tool can be used for measuring the experiment? What's the criteria to choose these tools? Depends upon the kind of product that you're working upon, Paul. If you are like I said, if you are working on a physical product, then you might want to go for 3D printing. You might want to go for products which can be prototyped using cardboard, using wood, right? Mechanical parts that you want to bring together, you can do that. If it's a digital product like an app or a mobile app or a web app, then there are multiple tools that are available out there, which can help you not only create the prototype, which can also help you measure specific parameters within different, let's say, mobile web pages or online web pages. It will help you define parameters that you want to measure as well. You have mentioned A/B testing under problem experimentation, but not under solution experimentation. So yes, A/B testing will arrive under solution as well, not just under a problem. It can be used under solution as well. I primarily put it under problem experimentation is because when you do problem experimentation, you try to create very early versions of your product, and you do a lot of the A/B testing there under problem experimentation. When you come to solution experimentation, the amount of, let's say, A/B testing that you do is relatively less as compared to problem level experimentation. That's the reason why I didn't list it. How do you market our product? Tools, technique, frameworks. That's a different topic. Not going to be covered here today, Mohammed. Shishir, when working on listing assumptions, how do you guard against overcorrecting for everything under the sun and never hitting the market or being too late? Okay, so that's where, so when you're putting your assumptions, put everything that you can think about, right? After that, you need to identify your critical assumptions, the ones which are really critical for your product and ones which don't have evidence. So that's the only way to guard yourselves and not going and creating fixing everything that you think is important. So you have to identify the most critical ones and the ones which don't have any kind of evidence. Use that matrix to identify assumptions, critical ones. As an individual who has built an MVP for a subscription-based app, wants to explain what could be the budget for the same, and are there any funding that one could apply to? For a subscription-based app, if you want to run experiments, Rahul, you have a bunch of tools available today. There are no-code tools that are available today, like Glide. I forget the name of a few others. There is Glide for sure, which is very popular. Costs not very much, peanuts. And you can run experiments using that. You don't even need to really approach anyone for any kind of funding for that matter. Okay, so let's move on. Once you've identified your experiment, you want to put an experiment matrix together. Okay, so here's a simple matrix. You have identified the critical assumptions, right? Which is all the ones which are unknown assumptions, meaning that you don't have any evidence. Then you identify the kind of experiments that you want to run. Landing page, explainer videos. It all depends upon the budget that you have, the reach that you want to have, right? How many customers do you want to reach? You take a decision based on that, onto what kind of experiment that you want to conduct. And then what is your success criteria? When would you say that your experiment has been successful? How many people do you want to reach? How many of them should confirm your assumption? Right? What is that valuable thing that you want from your customers that will tell you that they're willing to try? Okay. And then you have a time box. All your experiments need to be time boxed. You can't run them forever. Right? And you can plan multiple experiments. Right? So once you do this, you can put a matrix like this. And then once you have run the experiment, you can tabulate the results in this way. So your actual reach, how many people did you actually reach out to? You had planned something, what is your actuals? Your results, what was the numeric result of your experiments? So that's one of the reasons why I said that your assumptions should have a metric that you can measure, right? So what was that numeric result of your experiment? 15 people confirmed, 100 clicked call to action, which is maybe they clicked on that button which says share your email address or share your phone number or whatever it is. That's your result. And then the insights and the action is, what did you learn from it qualitatively, right? You capture that as your insight and actions, right? So these are two important metrics, two important spreadsheets that you can create and fill. Once you have done this, what you're going to do is you're going to plot it on an experiment scorecard that looks something like this, right? So you have on the first line here, on the first column here, either it could be the idea or it could be the feature that you want to build in. And then you plot your probability of success based on what you have measured. You plot all your experiments there, right? If you see that your experiments, how many of your experiments you've run, they give you the probability of success is 50% or more, then probably this is an idea worth investing. If you see that it is less than 50% or less, in fact, less than 50%, then this is probably a feature or an idea that you might want to kill, and not go further. If your experiments results are scattered, it means that you need to run more experiments. It means that you need to do more testing. That's what it means. So you could use a scorecard like this. Again, you can create these scorecards very specific to your industry or the domain that you're working upon, right? You don't have to, these metrics here, these probabilities here are arrived at not just by one single person as a product leader or product manager. This has to be arrived at with your team, with your product development team, right? Together, you decide what do you think as a successful metric, and plot them on a graph like this, on a scorecard like this. And based on this, you'll be able to take a call if you want to invest in an idea or a feature, you want to kill the idea, or you want to test more. Okay, so that's how the experiment is tabulated. Now, there are some pitfalls as well, right? These are the most common pitfalls when it comes down to experiments. Experiments require time. Don't be in a hurry to run and get to solutions. Experiments require time. You need to plan that time. You have to dedicate that time to run your experiments. At the same time, don't get hit by analysis paralysis. You have to get started at some point in time, and you have to adapt it accordingly, right? Over planning is also a killer. You have to make sure that you're moderately planned. Not everything might be certain at the beginning, but then you improvise as you run your experiments. Running way too less experiments. Conducting just one experiment for your most important hypothesis, for your most important assumption is not good. You have to run at least 2 to 3 experiments for that hypothesis. Be aware of cognitive biases, especially the confirmation bias. Be aware of getting carried away by evidence which kind of agrees with your hypothesis. Be critical of the evidence that you get. Get into the details. Don't believe everything that you see. You have to analyze, insight, review it thoroughly so that you're not getting biased by either your solution or your understanding of the problem. And experiments have to be well planned. Experiments you have to be very clear about what you want to measure and how you will use that information to arrive at a consensus, right? So you have to make sure that you are that your evidence and your intent is very clear when you're putting your experiments together. Okay, so that's some of the most common experiment pitfalls. Okay, so with that, I have another short video that I want to share. Again,
And in your writing, you describe.
Sorry about that.
Highest paid entry-level job.
Test their.
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to restart it.
And in your writing, you describe how some entrepreneurial teams test their fundamental hypothesis, their assumption, without even having built the product.
Yeah.
Can you describe pre-product testing?
Yeah, it is amazing when you really think about, all right, what do I want to learn? Classic thing to learn is, will customers sign up for my product at all? If it was already built, if I already had it perfect, would they want to buy it from me? Well, easiest way to do that test is to put up a single one-page landing page where we describe what the product is, that we pretend we've already built it, and simply say, would you like to pre-order this product right now? In most cases, when I've done that test, I didn't even have to make page 2 where I apologize that the product doesn't exist because nobody even wants it. It's also possible to build a much less functional prototype than you would normally think about, an engineer building. The key is to try to simulate as much of the experience for customers as possible. So there's a very famous company called Dropbox that today is one of Silicon Valley's hottest companies. They had this very complicated technology for file sharing that they were trying to build, and the whole idea was it would give you this magical experience that just worked across all your computers, magic synchronization. And the way they built their MVP was not with an ounce of technology. They just made a video of this kind of prototype that they had built on their computer that made it look like it would work like magic. But the video showed you what the experience would be, and then they used the video to get people, again, to sign up to pre-order, to commit to be part of their community. And that was enough, without any technology, to show them they were on the right track.
When you run that kind of pre-product experiment, how do you know what number of signups contributes to success and below what number constitutes an opportunity, a need to rethink?
Yeah. There's no absolute number that matters. It matters, how do those numbers plug into your overall business model? So it's important to make a prediction about what it's supposed to be. If I'm selling a product that's extremely expensive, I might only need a handful of customers in order to build a profitable business, and so getting only a handful of customers to sign up would be a very important indication. I was just talking to an entrepreneur who had read my book and was kind of sharing their story with me, and they told me about they were building this clean tech product that was incredibly expensive and complicated, and they were really in trouble, business about to run out of money, CEO quit, it was really a dire situation. And all they had was a prototype that only could convert to energy 1/10 the volume that they were planning to build. And after reading the book and hearing about minimum viable product, he thought, what if we offered the prototype for sale? He said, all right, we're going to charge $2.7 million for this prototype. And they put it up for sale, and he instantly got 10 orders. So he went from company about to go bankrupt in the brink of disaster to a company with $27 million in bookings, just from that one thing to say, hey, is it possible to sell this prototype? Well, that was a very big success. In your classic consumer internet business, that's going to need millions of signups. If we have a sign-up rate that's only 5%, 3%, that's not going to be good enough usually to grow a sustainable business. So it's important to be able to make those kind of predictions. But the other nice thing about these kinds of experiments is rather than doing market research, every person who signs up has actually opted in to be part of your experimental community. So you can take that quantitative validation and turn it right into qualitative analysis by talking to those customers. It's Steve Blank's famous dictum to get out of the building and go observe customers, interact with them in person, and really try to get to know them better.
Okay, so that was Eric Rice. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'll show you some examples of some landing pages, and then we go and work on the real life problems that I had given you. We'll work on that and give each one of you some time to work on it and present it as well. Okay, so this is what a landing page looks like. So that's the one that Eric Rice was talking about, that we create a landing page, a simple web page, which looks something like this. There are several tools which can help you put this together. I will share the names of the tools as well, which has a simple value proposition statement, which will tell what are you offering. Yeah, a simple secondary explanation of the value proposition, and a simple text box which says email and sign up for early access, call to action button. At the bottom, you have an image which describes what is the pain or the problem that you're trying to solve for the customer. What is that you're trying to offer in terms of a product or a service, and what has the customer got to gain from it? Remember, the pain and the gain are opposite of each other. Okay, not the opposite of each other. They're different. Pain is exactly the problem that you're trying to solve for them, and gain is something that is over and above the problem that you're trying to solve for them. So a simple landing page like this can serve as an experiment to tell you if people connect with the problem that you're trying to solve. Okay. So there are various such templates. if you go to Google and if you look for landing page templates, you will find hundreds of them. Pick one that is relevant for your problem or for your idea that you want to. This is the landing page of Slack. This is what they put when they put it together. When it was free, Slack was free, and you see how they say this is where work happens and what does it do, and your email and try it free. Okay. This is the landing page for a website called Lending Club. Okay. So as you can see, there's some information here saying 28 billion have already invested via Lending Club, which catches your attention immediately. And for people who are looking for investments, they wouldn't even go and look at the bottom. They'll probably start filling this information out, right? So here there is the value proposition that you're offering, and then there are specific numbers here which quantifies the value that the product is offering. So some of the common tools that you can use for landing pages, you have Google Sites, you have Unbounce, you have Wix. Some of these tools, landing page tools, offers you measurements as well, offers you metrics as well, inbuilt metrics as well. Then you have no-code tools like Glide and Webflow, which I already shared with you. To make explainer video experiments, you have tools like Canva, there's Adobe Spark. Some of them are available for free, some of them are available for a nominal cost. And then you have product video makers like Wondershare and Demo Builder that you can use to create product videos. Yeah. So these are some very good early experiments that you can use to validate your solution, right? And then you can have more, let's say, you can have prototypes put together, physical prototypes, mobile apps, web apps, and whatsoever to create it. Okay, so with that, what I'd like to do is I want to give you say about it's what 12:23 now. Let's take time until 12:45 to go and work and put an experiment together here on the slide that I shared with you. Right, for the ones who have joined recently, I'm going to put this link again in the chat. Okay, I put that in the chat. Please access this link, make a copy of, click on file, make a copy, entire presentation, and start filling out slides number 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and if possible, 7 and 8 also. But then I think for today, what we will do is 3, 4, 5, and 6. Pick any one of these problems that is listed here. Any one of these, whichever you connect with, whichever you relate to, and fill out 3, 4, 5, and 6. Once you are done, what I'd like you to do is put your name in the chat, and based on whoever is done at around 12:45, we will see if you can come on board and present your hypothesis as well. Okay. Okay. If that is good, then I give you time until 12:45 to work on slides number 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I guess meanwhile, we can address some questions that are in the Q&A box.
Sure. I'll pick those questions. I think I answered most of them. All right. Should probably start. Okay. So I have a question from Gauri Shankar. One of the common problems encountered is either firms want product owners to go with the template, or in startups where you are crunched for time and funding. How much of a runway do we have to test hypotheses? Go with the template. Okay, yeah. So yes, there are startups which go with the templates, probably because they've had some positive experience in the past with these templates, or they have proof that these templates work for someone else. It's not a bad idea to go with the templates. However, you want to make sure that those templates can lead to meaningful experiments, and then those experiments can give you meaningful insights, right? And yes, there is always a crunch for time, but my pushback is that you got to be able to justify the time required to run an experiment based on the amount of money that you're going to be spending on building that particular feature or building that product. You have to do an impact analysis there to say, hey, do you want me to spend ₹1 lakh on creating this, creating this product or creating this feature without running sufficient experiments, only to find that this feature is not required? Or are you okay with spending ₹15,000 for a period of a month or two, run these experiments, and then come up with something more meaningful? So there is always that it's a constant, let's say, a constant challenge that a product manager faces, where he or she has to justify the time required to run an experiment, depending upon the complexity of the experiment and the amount of money and effort that's going to be spent on creating that particular feature or product. Adding to sustainability question, how do you structure consumers' demands, problems as the product is solving for climate and directly for the consumer? How do you structure consumers' demands and problems as the product is solving for the climate and directly for the consumer? Okay, so sustainability is again is a problem that is associated with macroeconomic trends and problem that is associated with the adaptability of your product. Now, you're putting a product together which is going to directly solve for the consumer, absolutely fine. And I'm sure you're making certain assumptions as well there, that this is what my consumer needs, or maybe you have those inputs from your consumers. Make them part of your assumptions, may identify them as critical assumptions if it is going to be critical, for which you don't have any evidence. And then you define specific experiments around it, specific experiments around those sustainability aspects or sustainability requirements for your customers. My suggestion is treat it like any other requirement. It might be a sustainability one, but treat it like any other requirement. And depending upon if it is a critical one for your business, if sustainability specific requirement is a critical one, and if you don't have enough evidence for it, then it should be one of your top assumptions that you should experiment and validate. Will consumer market surveys and data be counted as part of hypothesis? Yes, it will be. These will become part of your assumptions. Market surveys and data are consumer market surveys and data are data that someone has created. Either we don't know, right? They might have reached out to real customers, or they have made it based upon their understanding of the markets. So yes, it is market surveys and data from reliable sources can be considered as part of your hypothesis. You need to validate it though. It has to be validated by you, not by anybody else. It has to be validated. It could be used, market surveys and data can be used as a first step to gain approval from your stakeholders to run that experiment. But it can't be used as the final information, as a decision-making information without being validated first. Okay. How to test physical products? Do landing pages work for physical products? Yes, very much. Landing pages work for physical products too. Your landing page is product agnostic, is domain agnostic. Your physical product at the end of the day offers a certain value proposition, solves a certain pain, offers gains, and has a certain approach that it takes to solve that problem, right? So your landing page is a good way of telling your customers how your physical product is going to solve their product, solve their problem. You can look up for examples of landing pages for Google Home or for Alexa or for any physical product that you can think of. You will find landing pages being created by companies for physical products as well. When working on listing assumptions, I think I answered that question. As an individual who has built an MVP, I think I answered that too. How to avoid over-engineering of the product? There are various frameworks that you can use. The most common one is to do an impact analysis, impact versus effort analysis, and pick up the ones which offer less, which take less effort but offer more impact, and pick them up as an experiment to become part of your experiment, Prakash. Can we have qualitative criteria? Example, like but not sure if they try, rather than having only quantity of customers who are willing to try. Qualitative criteria, like but not sure if they try. To run experiments, you could. But how will you measure it? Qualitative criteria, how will you measure it? So it's important that even if it is qualitative, you got to have some way of measuring it. Otherwise, you don't know if your experiment, how successful your experiment has been. How to assess what is the correct time to run an experiment? Normally, I tend to run experiments up until a point where I don't receive or don't end up learning anything new. And today, companies have defined standards based on their experiments and based on their experience of experiments that I've run in the past. So it depends upon the kind of product and the complexity of the experiment that you're trying to solve. So if you're putting a simple landing page as an experiment, then depending upon the kind of reach that you have, you might want to run it for anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks is a good time for a landing page kind of experiment. It depends upon the reach. How many people have you been able to reach out to? For a physical product, let's say you've 3D printed a product, right? And you use that as an experiment to see if people are resonating and connecting with your product. You might want to run an experiment for based on the number of customers that you can reach out to. Anywhere between 15 to 20 customers is a good number when you're creating physical products to run an experiment. How to define the success metrics of any new product? Depends upon the kind of product and the kind of industry that you're building the product for, Monica. So if it's a fintech product, let's say if it's a mobile app for that matter, then your success metric could be like, okay, how many daily active users do I garner, right? How many repeat customers do I get for this product? So there are various metrics that are available that you can look up for, right? That will help you determine if what is your definition of success for your customers. Right? Since the focus today here is in terms of experiments, I gave some metrics. Depending upon the kind of experiments, you can determine how long. Let's say if you're putting a landing page together, you determine how long the customer has stayed on that landing page. How many of them have left their email address and phone numbers? how many of them clicked on the like button, which might tell you that customers have connected with that problem. And that could be used as a success metric. Okay. All right. So I hope you're working on the exercise of picking anyone of these sessions or any one of these problem statements here, and see if you have been able to put together idea design, and you're able to identify a hypothesis at least. And after that, we can decide how we want to go with an experiment. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute here and let you work on slide number 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's see if a few of you want to come up and share. If you're done, if anybody is done, put your name in the chat, and that will tell me if you're if you'd like to, if you're done with it and if you want to share.
Hi, Subodh. We have a question from LinkedIn. I've posted it in the chat. Rajeshwari has asked the question.
Okay. Okay, let me take a few more questions. I see Bubble, yes, Bubble can be used as well. Will a landing page experiment work on products that is already launched? Landing page experiments can be used on products when you are creating a new feature inside an existing product. You can use a landing page too. No problem. You can do that. Okay, and a question from Rajeshwari on LinkedIn. How much of experimentation feedback is to be incorporated back to the product? Say during experiment, you end up with new pain points that need priority, where and how to avoid getting into feedback loops. Okay, so the intent of your experiment has to be very clear. So you're running an experiment so that you can validate your hypothesis. So you have a hypothesis which is driving your experiment. So either the experiment either validates your hypothesis or it invalidates it. Okay, that's the outcome of your experiment. Now, in the process, you might find out that there are new pain points that you've identified as part of the experiment. You found out that there are new pain points. Then you need to identify if these pain points, these are problems again, right? You need to identify if these pain points are the right problem to solve again. And if you think that they are the right problems to solve, you will need to plan for experiments for these pain points as well to validate these pain points. Because again, these problems will have some solutions that you'll come up with. You'll have to make sure that you're validating those solutions, those assumptions that you make around those solutions, and so you'll go to another loop of experiments, right? So that's why it's very important to identify, to be very clear that what's the intent of your experiment. Is the intent to just validate the hypothesis and leave it there? Then you should just leave it there. And maybe if you get new pain points, they will go into the backlog of your product. Maybe those are not priority for you right now. So it's a constant loop. That's why we say that there is no perfect product. A product is something that's constantly evolving. As in when you launch new versions of the product into the market, you will learn something new, some new other pain point, which depending upon how big the pain point is, may need to be incorporated rather quickly, or maybe will just go into the product backlog and will probably be taken up at a later point in time. Okay, seems like
Gauri has let us know that she has finished working on the slides. I'm just going to unmute her.
Sure. So I'm going to stop sharing, Gauri, and let you share your screen and present whatever.
She doesn't have sharing screen access, but she does. She's unmuted right
She's
now.
unmuted. Maybe you can put your link to the solution here, Gauri, that you want to present, and I can share my screen.
Sure. And then
Why don't
what
you just share that particular presentation and put it in the chat, and I will bring it up here.
you want the link of it or a copy of the slides?
Anything, as long as I can access it, should be fine.
Okay, let me try sharing the link. Let me know if you can access it. So let me know if you can access the link. Just share it in the chat.
Yeah, it says I need access. Access is denied. So maybe you can share it with everybody, or I can request access also. I just sent you an email with a request for access. Were you able to do it? Grant
Yeah,
access?
I'm just doing it. Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Take your time.
Can you check if you're able to access the file now?
Yes. Okay. Start sharing my screen. Okay. Which one did you pick, Gaurish?
I picked the fifth one, simplify subs.
Okay. All yours. Go for it.
Okay, so basically the idea is to have one app where you can manage all your subscription, but the only difference being it's not just about parking your money and the app letting you renew the subscription, but more about how smartly you use the money that you have. Because more often we renew subscriptions and we do not even use it. So it's about analyzing the data for each of the apps that a person uses and what content do they watch, or what is it that they use. Let's say if it's a Swiggy, is it only when they are in out of their hometown that's when they use it. So these kind of insights that the app offers, so that it lets the consumer use the money smartly and not just renew it and not use it. So that's the value proposition for the app.
Nice. Okay. Your assumptions.
So not exhaustive, just the list of assumptions that I was able to. So yeah, I mean, the same point that I alluded to in the previous slide, because very often we have blanket renewals, but then we don't even use it for some period of time. Let's say we have our own preference of movies that we want to watch, and we watch a movie, and then that's pretty much about it. We have the rest of the 2 months lying idle. So those are the insights that we want to enable as part of this app. And the other upsell and cross-sell opportunities that will eventually evolve is with the data that we gather over a period of time. Then you tend to have a database of the consumption patterns. What are they interested in? So then you could look at how else do you expand the product offering? Is it from advertisements, or how do you expand your product portfolio? So that's the other point. We do have a lot of solutions in the market which have such functionality, but not sure if all of them have this type of functionality where it gives you the insights and lets a customer decide in terms of how smartly they want to spend their money on over the vast variety of OTT offerings or other services that they have. And the last assumption is the targeted segment that would benefit the most would be the Gen Z, the younger generation who have only a limited amount of money that they want to manage, but then given the options that they have now, they have to judiciously choose which one do they renew and when do they renew and how do they manage the subscription. So that's the target segment that I'm going after.
Nice. Okay. So then how did you arrive at your critical assumptions?
Yeah, so only the two that I was able to come up with. The first priority being we don't have much of evidence, but something that I want to test because that would dictate the success of the app as per my assumption. So which is figuring out if Gen Z would be the target segment for my app. So gathering evidence for that would be a direct measure of the success. I'm not sure if we have any applications in the market that can give us that evidence. So hence I have parked it in the first segment, which is critical, but we don't have evidence yet.
Okay. So the assumption that you're making here is that the Gen Z today, they don't know how to judiciously spend money. Or
Yeah.
they have, not don't know, but they need help with judicious.
They need help. Yes.
They need help with judicious. Okay.
Yeah. And the other assumption is, so we have data across each of the app on the expenditure, the content that is being watched, or when a subscription is being renewed. It's just about collating all of them and then doing a lot of analysis and drawing insights out of the data that we are able to collate. That would help us come out with patterns and figuring out trends, right? So the evidence is present. It's just about collating them into one place, or how do we access them? But that is equally critical as well. Hence, I put it as a number 2 priority in the assumption mapping.
Okay. Great. So then, what's your hypothesis?
So yeah, I mean, I'm positioning the app for the Gen Z and then the younger population of the millennials, and I believe they would take to this app because one, they would want to be smart about spending the money, and they wouldn't want to spend a lot of time gathering data or researching as to when do they want to renew, and so they would rather want the app tell them and then make decision or help them with decisions. So that's my hypothesis, that Gen Z and the younger population of millennials would greatly benefit from this app.
Okay, so just a suggestion here.
Yep.
Since it's a hypothesis, you need to be able to measure your hypothesis.
Right.
So when you say most of Gen Z and some portion of millennials, that's a vague statement there.
Right.
So if you are going to approach, let's say I approach 100 millennials. Out of 100 millennials, how many do you think what would be your definition of success? If you think that, okay, 50% of them connect with my solution, connect with what I'm trying to solve here, I believe that my hypothesis is validated. So
right.
arrive at to put a number there,
right,
and go after the experiment and see how you can reach that number. Okay,
sure.
So that's the only correction I'd like to make. At some point in time, you'll also need to decide and be clear about what do you mean by judiciously managing spending. So what is that definition of judicious spending? Right? Does it mean that millennials should be able to save 20% of their money by the end of the month? Is that what you mean by judicious spending? Or does it mean that millennials should be able to spend money on less on clothing, more on books? Or is it configurable? That definition also should come out clearly at some point in time.
Absolutely, right. So my thought process was this, right? So all of these subscriptions have different tenures. Some of it have three months, 6 months, or a year. Sometimes we don't even use the subscription for the entire period of time, right? So that's just one aspect of it, right? You could look at how do you want to park your money in and over the different apps that you have, depending on the usage, so that frees up money. And ultimately, the bottom line is you save up money, and what you do with the saved money is a different thing. But rather than parking your money, which is not used for subscriptions, you might as well go for options that would be put to use smartly. So that's where I'm going with this.
Okay, sounds good. Is that it? I think this is the last slide.
Yes, Subodh, that's
perfect. It'll be interesting if you want to take this idea further and put some experiments together. It's a very interesting. I think it's a problem. I think even I face this problem. I have a bunch of apps, and I keep renewing them. But usage wise, I know it's mostly the Netflix or the Prime that Amazon Prime that I go to. I rarely go to the others that I subscribe for. Maybe this is a problem worth solving. A good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Subodh. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop my sharing here. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Anybody else? You can put your name in the chat and share your screen. It'll be nice to hear you. Okay. All right. So if that is it, then Gauri, thank you very much. Harleen, do we have any other questions for me?
No, I think you've managed to cover them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a raised hand by Prakash. I'm not sure if he has a question or if. Okay. Prakash, you're done. You want to share? Looks like Prakash is done. He wants to probably share. Prakash Kumar.
Prakash, you've been unmuted. If you have anything.
Yes, Subodh, even I have completed, so probably if you want, we can discuss this.
Excellent. Yeah, why not? Why don't you share the link to your presentation in the chat and grant me permission so that I can project it on my screen?
Sure. Give me a minute. So in a Q&A session, I have pasted the link.
I'm sorry?
One second.
The link is in the Q&A box.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Q&A box.
Yeah, I enable to access everybody. Yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to bring it up.
Sure.
Okay. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, Prakash, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I have selected the transporter option. So this is today, right? So we have a lot of trucks ferrying to and fro, but while returning, right? So probably they might come empty. So by rightly identifying those empty trucks, we can put them in use. So that's the idea I'm trying to solve. So that is the second option. The first option is if you solve the second option, so we can directly link with the first model also. So if you go there, right? So the actual target customers are both urban and rural population. I don't have the exact data on how much percentage that we can acquire, but yeah, so because both the places, people are buying the things, right? So definitely we can use the app for both the areas.
Okay.
And another target and acquisition of customers would be the store owners and truck drivers, because store owners is the first point of contact where we can sell our product. So let's say when you see store owners, like in Bangalore, we have a Pi and other electronic stores, right? So we can work with them. And when they sell some product like TV or refrigeration, so they might be having some local contact where they have a local driver, to deliver the apparels to the customers. So by integrating with them, we can sell the app and we can give our products to the customers.
Okay, great. Okay, so I see some of your assumptions here.
Yeah. So the existing customer base, definitely, they had a hard time to find out the ferrying career, and definitely even if they find somebody, right? So they there might, there is a lot of negotiation happens between, how much they would charge to the specific destination, and who would unload and who would take it to the, the top, if it is a top floor, right? So those things, we can everything is a problem. So they have to confirm with the driver or friend, or else, that will be the problem. So that eventually, right? So especially in my purchases, always we end up having some kind of a an issues for the delivery partner. So but when we have when we sell the product through an app, when I say product, the only the transport solution, right? So they can have an option of selecting the option, like, you have to unload, you have to put it in the home door. So there also we can add a little bit money there. So if they want to unload and deliver it to the doorstep, we can add a little bit more money. Yeah, that is another point of selling. Yeah.
So that's your feasibility and your adaptability as well. Yes, market forces, nice. Buns, riots, and government holidays, definitely yes. They will have an impact on your product. Okay, so what are your most critical assumptions?
So the revenue generation model. So because there is no evidence, how we are going to speak with the store owners and how we are going to acquire with them. Definitely, there would be a bonus model where if they start referring our application per referral, they are going to get some benefits. Also, what we can do, we can give some analytics on which area they are selling more products. Let's say. Let's take an example where Tata Chroma is located in Maratali, and probably the customers would ferrying to that specific Chroma, not specifically from Maratali alone. Definitely, some guys they would scroll around and they will select that Maratali Chroma, probably some extra offer that they are running. So eventually, right? So we can we are actually gauging the destination where we are delivering the goods, so we can give them the insights, right? So this specific location have more orders where we have delivered more products. So that is one more model.
Mm-hmm.
But how we are going to acquire the customer means how we are going to acquire the store owners is a difficult thing that I'm not sure. And the have evidence is definitely the customers always have a real pain while transporting the bigger items. Also, it's not only with the logistics, also with the people and in between other aspects as well. And not critical legal issues, definitely when you start acquiring this kind of a transport model, right? The local unions and those guys will make a problem. So we have to tackle that. But at this point, it may not be an issue because we are just starting up. But I think with the right guidance and the lawyers, right, we can tackle that issue. And market size, yeah, means anyway, both rural and urban people are definitely going to purchase the electronic items and the wooden items and other stuff. Definitely, they need a transport logistics, right? So, but at this moment, we don't actually worry about the market size. So this is my hypothesis. Yes.
Okay. Now, what would help is that Prakash, that you put, when you say revenue generation model, be very clear about what is the assumption. So revenue generation model is just a phrase. So when you list the assumption, put in clear words what is the assumption you're making, so that it is much more clearer. Otherwise, revenue generation model is a very high level statement. Just like you put customers have real pain while transporting the bigger items. Is an assumption that you're making, which is okay, clear to a certain extent, but revenue generation model is not a very clear statement. So make sure that you can put in a much more clearer way.
Sure, yeah. I'll take it out.
Okay, and what is your hypothesis?
Yeah, so we believe rural urban population will use our transport app to transport heavy goods because they don't want to take the pain of finding and negotiating with the driver, and especially in the congested areas, to finding the logistics itself is a pain point.
Okay. So here again, when you say we believe, make sure that you put a certain percentage, a certain number that you can measure. So when you say, I believe 10% of urban population or 20% or whatever it is, put that number there so that it can be measured. This is one thing. The other one is, see, first thing, what you're trying to solve is two ways, right? One is, on one side you have consumers, and on the other side you have these truck, let's say these four-wheelers which are available. You are trying to solve the problem for the four-wheelers, because today these four-wheelers are available for transporting for consumers. As long as consumers are concerned, it is available for them, and sometimes they're ready to pay full price too. But the real problem, that problem statement is for the truck owners. They have to come empty-handed. So you're trying to solve a problem for them. So you might want to change your hypothesis to consider that.
Yeah, but see, most of the cases, right? So they, especially means the logistics carrier, right? So they will take the money for both the round trip, right? It's not always that they are going to take the money only for the destination. So that's why, I have assumed that, while coming the return, while they are returning from the delivery point, still, they made a money, but the truck is empty, right?
Correct. The truck is empty. No, what I'm trying to tell you is that you have to look at the problem from both ends in terms of when you're trying to do an assumptions mapping and validation. Who's having the bigger problem? It's probably the truck owners, that they have to drive back empty. So your solution, the focus of your solution is to see how you can get them business. The second thing is finding consumers and all of that, and making sure that consumers can get these trucks at a lower price. That is secondary part of it. But the primary part is that these trucks, you're solving the problem for them first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you ask me, I think that would be a much critical assumption that you want to hypothesis that you want to validate.
Sure.
Using your app. Okay, and today there are apps like Porter, which do something similar, but not for empty vehicles. But this is what they offer. You might want to figure out why are they doing anything in that space, or is there already a solution that they're trying to offer? You might want to check that also, and you might get some insights, and maybe some of your assumptions which you think are critical might not be critical anymore as well. But that's also possible.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, both Gauri and Prakash, for sharing what you've been able to present. Really appreciate it. And I think we are 8 minutes over. And I'd like to thank all the participants for making yourselves available. I hope you're able to take back something today that you can put to use. Feel free to reach out to me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. You can connect with me one-on-one as well if required, and I'll be happy to assist you with any questions that you might have. Back to you, Harleen.
That's very kind of you. We're getting positive comments from our attendees saying they had a lot of takeaways and it was an informative session, which I second. It was a great session, and I'm sure the attendees are taking away some great insights. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harleen. Thank you for having me, and happy weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Subodh. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you to the attendees as well. I request you guys to just take a few minutes of your time to just leave us a review, feedback, doubts, anything you have. We would really appreciate it. So you can scan the QR code on the screen to do the same. I'll give you a few seconds to scan the QR code. Well, finally, I want to thank you all for giving us your valuable time, and I hope you've had a great, fruitful and insightful session. And I look forward to hosting you again in the future. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a good day.